All right, everyone. So IGN put out a final preview for PAX Romana. This game looks pretty sick. So we're going to react to their video here and let's see what they found.
The land may be unfamiliar, of some the people unyielding, but the legacy you built here could echo through the Empire. So welcome to Albion. Your story begins here.
My first hands-on with Anno 117, Pax Romana, left me excited for Ubisoft Main's latest take on the city builder, which tasks players with founding a thriving metropolis within the Roman Empire. But I wouldn't necessarily say I was intrigued by it. The studio made significant strides in its game design with 2018's Industrial Revolution-focused Anno 1800, and 117 felt wary of rocking the boat in the wake of 1800's success. While Pax Romana demonstrated.
So we might play this game before this one comes out just because I want to have some form of like, having played it already. But if you remember our one of our previous videos, this might have some changes to it as well. Like some of the games, they change and they vary from game to game. I'm not sure that's going to be the case here, but we will probably be playing this one that he's discussing just because I want to get a feel for what the game's like before we get into this one.
Some interesting ideas, like enabling production buildings to affect the mood and prosperity of nearby structures, forcing you to think more carefully about your city's layout, and otherwise felt a little safe and a little familiar. That isn't necessarily a huge problem. Getting to build Roman cities with 1800s core systems was enough of a hook, and I would merrily play that game. But
I will say this game, it looks like there's more than like if you play Civilization or some of the other ones, you can kind of seemingly customize like I'm gonna put a building here. And like that's uh way different than a lot of these different games that I've played where usually they give you like distinct areas to place a building or something like that. It doesn't look like that's the case here. My guess is there's probably trade-offs to building in different areas, but that's to me when I'm looking at this, that's like the thing that's popping out the most is like, wow, all right. So you really can control what your area looks like.
I was nonetheless left wondering whether stepping deeper into the past would inhibit Ubisoft minds from carrying the city builder forward. Then again, I'd only seen half of the game. The initial
Like, look how cool this looks. Like, this looks sick, you know? I mean, I guess I don't know which game this actually is, but this looks sick.
preview session focused on constructing a city in the province of Latium, one of the two provinces you'll be able to manage in Anno 117's nebulous, historically unmoored presentation of Rome. All lush green hills, lavender fields, and terracotta rooftops. Latium offers everything you'd expect from a city builder set in the Roman Empire, and perhaps because of that, it doesn't feel especially surprising. By comparison, my more recent play session let players choose between Latium and Albion. Anno 117's second province is drastically different from Latium's Mediterranean paradise, and it's where Anno 117 has the chance to stand out from other games that depict the legacy of Rome. What's immediate.
So this is pretty cool. So you get two different choices and they vary like greatly where, that just adds to the playthrough. And I know a lot of these games, obviously they're meant for a lot of different playthrough, but even so, like some of the games, it's like, okay, there's differences. Maybe you get a different ability, but the overall experience might not be all that different. This feels like that's going to be the case where you pick one, you pick the other. It's like playing two distinct and separate campaigns with their own different challenge.
Immediately interesting is that you can start the game in either province, establishing yourself there before expanding to the other province later. This is a big change from Anno 1800, where you always started in the European-themed Old World before establishing colonies in the tropical New World, exporting exotic goods like cocoa and bananas for your industrialized hoi polloi to enjoy at home. How this starting choice will affect the structure of trade between Anno 117's two provinces isn't wholly clear. Yet what is clear is that building a city in Albion feels substantially different from constructing one in Latium. For starters, Albion looks and feels a world away from Latium. Where Latium's undiluted landscape is vividly green and inviting, Albion is wild, weird, and wet. Its landscape is all brownish shrub, dark evergreen forests, and glistening marshland wrecked constantly by wind and rain. Imagined from the perspective of a Roman soldier, it feels appropriately alien, the last place any centurion who marched out of Italy would end up. Then again, as someone who lives in Scotland and begins to melt in any temperature above 18 degrees Celsius, it feels fondly like home.
So that's once again just adding to it. It's like that's a really cool feature here. I could see a lot of people playing through multiple times with each one, trying to be like, all right, we could perfect this, we could perfect that, because it just feels like there's two distinct different things, and you're not going to get it perfect on the first try. So you're probably going to be playing two, three times minimum on each before you decide, okay, now what else can we do with the game?
Establishing a settlement remains roughly the same between the two provinces. Your basic construction material is still timber, sourced by placing logging camps in forests, then transporting those logs to nearby woodcutters to be fashioned into building materials. Roads start out as simple dirt paths, and all production buildings require a nearby warehouse to efficiently transport goods around your settlement. Likewise, the economic fundamentals are also the same. Basic income is generated by houses, but only when you meet the needs and desires of the class of citizens who live in the dwelling. Once
So he kind of makes the point of, and he's played this one and the prior one. He makes the point of this game is pretty similar to the last one. Like the changes he said so far are not huge, massive changes from what he's describing. I mean, it might effectively be that way with you could play in two different, starting spots now, which is different than the prior one. But the underlying, base game, right? The kind of gameplay loop is the same.
you meet all those needs, you can then upgrade the building to house a higher class of citizen. This generates more income, but involves fulfilling more complex needs that require.
I mean, I'm just looking as he's doing this. This to me, and I haven't played each and every one of this style of game, but this just feels while I'm watching this like this is the easiest thing in the world to construct what you want to construct. Like this is always with a lot of these type of games where sometimes you just feel like, oh my God, like this is so annoying and tedious to put all of this stuff in the right spot, where this feels like it's really simple. Like putting down these roads feels really easy. Putting down these buildings in the correct spot feel very easy. It doesn't feel overly complex, which that is going to be this will be in itself something that excites me about this game, because I'm just looking at it, that seems pretty easy to do. Like even like something like Civilization, which I love, it's it still gets to a point where you're like, okay, I can only put this in this city, let me research this and research that. It's just sometimes I understand these are strategy games, so there's always a level of complexity to them, and I have no problem with that. But this, I want to build a road, it's straightforward to do it, and I think that's helpful.
Exponentially more elaborate production chains. A new addition to Anno 117, you can also boost a house's income and other stats like happiness and health by placing certain production buildings within your residential areas. Building a tunic spinner among your dwellings, for example, provides +1 income for every home inside the spinner's radius. Other buildings.
And so there still is, seeing that, there still is a level of complexity and thought. It's just easy to do what you want to do, but you still have some complexity and, different strategy things that you're doing.
Buildings, like charcoal burners, can have a negative impact on these stats, so you want to keep those distanced from your core settlements. The intent is to fold in extra strategy and reward more thoughtful city planning, and from my experience with both sides of the game, it works. Yet, while the underlying systems are the same, the actual production chains vary significantly from those in Latium. Your lowest class of citizen, which in Albion are named waiters, subsist on a diet of cockles and eels dredged from the abundant waters around you. Your second tier building isn't Roman brick, but wattle and daub, created by mixing.
So before he moves on from this point that we were just, kind of discussing, that, and I haven't played it yet, so I can't confirm 100%, but that sounds to me exactly like the type of game I want to play, where he's talking about the city planning, where it's easy and simple for me to say, I want to do this, I could do this. but there's planning that has to be done for it all to work out. So you get the best of both worlds. Because I feel like some of these games, the complexity is not in, like I'm trying to strategize what I want to do. The complexity is just in figuring out how the hell to do it. That becomes the bigger issue.
Mud with dry cattail reeds. Many of these resources are harvested from an environment that you don't see in Latium at all, the marshes. Far more than a thematic affectation in Albion, its wetlands are a crucial part of Celtic civilization. Many Celtic buildings can be constructed on the marsh itself, and some of them, like reed farms and cattle pens, can only be built within the fens, erected on wooden poles driven into the mud and strung together with creaking networks of boardwalks. While these buildings afford a distinguishing flavor to Albion, curiously, it's the boardwalks that make the most difference mechanically. These are constructed in the same way as roads, by dragging them across the landscape with your mouse. Yet, where roads simply cost coin to build, boardwalks require timber. Since every major structure requires timber at the outset, this means that you have a much higher initial demand for building materials in Albion than you do in Latium, which makes getting your settlement up and running slightly more challenging. Alongside this greater resource pressure, the boardwalks cause several other complications. Like regular buildings, marshland structures require access to a warehouse, further increasing your timber costs. Moreover, many wetland-specific production buildings need plenty of additional space for reed crops and cattle patties, which can easily encroach upon one another and reduce productivity. Consequently, laying out the boardwalks to maximize your space without obliterating your wood supply makes for an unexpectedly challenging spatial puzzle. What results, even at this early stage, is a highly distinctive settlement, a semi-aquatic village with one foot soaked in prehistory. Where Albion truly begins to fascinate, however, is what happens when you start upgrading these basic buildings to accommodate a higher class of citizen. Upon upgrading your first house, Albion's Anno map presents you with a choice. Do you want your structure to house Romano Celts, i.e. native Celts who have converted to a Roman lifestyle, or do you want to maintain the culture and architecture of your home nation? Which of
So that is really, really cool because you literally now have within the different groups that you could be, you have two different paths you could go down. I'm already seeing, what this guy's describing, the headache that I'm going to have playing this game, trying to be like, okay, so if I do this here, I'm going to lose this and this. It's going to be, but at least it's easy to do, right? That I'd much rather be thinking it than having to struggle trying to just be like, how do I put this in? How do I do this? Whereas this is a little bit more strategy. But yeah, so my guess is it's the same on the flip side of the different place you could be. And so that alone now gives us, so we have two, that's two different playthroughs on himself. And you're probably going to play 3 or 4 times minimum before you really fully understand everything there is on each side. And then you have within those 2 branching trees. So you're getting a ton of playthrough here with, and that's just the basic playthrough.
these you prioritize leads to diverging needs and desires, and thus different production chains. Higher tier Celts want to eat cheese and adorn themselves with fancy bracelets, while Romano Celts want to eat more imperial cuisine and maintain their appearance with the use of hand mirrors. On top of this, the two cultures receive improved bonuses from different traits. Romano Celts have a more formalized education system and are thus more adept at acquiring scholarly knowledge, while Celtic peoples who keep to the old ways receive benefits from faith. The choice you make is also intended to influence the look and layout of your city. Adopting Roman culture encourages players to build a single large metropolis, supporting which may require you to drain the marshes to create more building space and farmable land, relying on aqueducts rather than natural water bodies to keep your city hydrated. Sticking with the Celtic traditions, on the other hand, will see you continue to build in and around nature, using the wetlands and the forests without making large-scale alterations to the landscape. It appears you won't be forced along one of these cultural avenues for the duration of your game either. Upgrade paths unlock again upon reaching the next tier. If you then decide you want to switch from Celtic to Romano Celtic or vice versa, you should be able to. How these decisions work in practice.
So that adds even more because now you could go down one path and then down the other, Pretty crazy, actually.
Practice, and the impact of repeatedly switching between one or the other has on your settlement, I can't say. This play session was considerably shorter than my time with Latium, just long enough to establish a basic settlement and get a quick overview of the second Celtic civilization tier. While there seems to be some overlap between all of Anno's cultural variants, I can't say just how much the Celtic and Romano-Celtic resources and structures diverge, nor what the differences are between the hybrid Romano-Celtic lifestyle and the pure Latium-derived Roman culture. Nonetheless, there is one clear evolution here over the previous Anno games. Anno 1800 and the futuristic Anno 2205 treated your colonies as secondary concerns, settlements whose purpose was to support your primary metropolis. In Anno 117, building settlements in Latium and Albion will be equally involved. Indeed, given the opportunities to define its culture across multiple evolutionary phases. Albion may even have more layers to it than the dedicated Roman settlement that would theoretically serve as the epicenter for the Empire. So, color me intrigued. For more previews, check out everything we have coming out of Gamescom 2025. And of course, for everything else video games, stick with IGN.
So if I'm understanding this right, this game appears to be pretty cool. I have to play the previous one to see if I'm missing anything because I'm wondering that ending kind of made me feel like maybe you play as both of them within one. I don't know if that's the case. But either way, this game looks pretty sick. We're gonna have a lot of coverage of it on the channel. There's no question about it. And one thing to look at even with this is that it just feels like it gives you a lot of control. And it's one of those games, and I don't like I said, I haven't played the prior ones, but it looks like it's one of those games that is really it keeps it very like this is what this game is, right? This is what we're going for. We're not adding in things that are gonna like be a feature or a setting that's halfway done. Like we're very clear what we are, and we hit that out of the park. So we will see. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.